Northeast blizzard,
yeah.
whatever, or what the hell they called it. Jerry, how are you, man?
I'm doing good, man. We got the tail end. We got a dusting of your
You got
snow.
it.
A dusting.
We're
Yes.
we're supposed to get. It didn't really snow too much, but it was just windy and I the last snowstorm I think up here in the Northeast was like I don't know 2017 18, but it was interesting to watch it. It was like whiteout conditions and it was pretty wild. But they're supposed to get some more 12 inches tonight or something like that. So I don't know.
Wow. Yeah. I just got back from Florida to see my new grandbaby, and it was 80 degrees and sunny for 4 of the 5 days.
I don't like the people in the south, southeast, southwest. They're just warm. Congratulations, by the way. Is that your first?
That's number one, man. Number one.
You're a grandpa officially now, man.
Yes, my kids want to name me Chief. It's so Chief and Mimi. But I don't know if Chief's going to hold up, because the grandkid's going to say whatever he wants to say, and that's typically
Yeah.
what you go with. But I don't know. It must be some kind of family joke I'm not involved in because Chief just doesn't sound like a grandparent name. But so we'll go with
I
it.
kind of, I kind of like it. Well, good for you,
Yeah,
man. Congratulations on that. And no,
sure.
good
Thank you.
boy, right? Boy, right? Boy, yes, it was a boy.
Yeah, he's
So
a big old boy, 23 inches, 8.5 pounds. So got
the last name continues.
yes, the family tradition is gone.
Keeps going on. Well, good stuff. Monday again, starting the week off. Busy week last week. Good week last week overall. Had Mark with Fast Track on the show last week, talking about some innovative stuff. I don't know if you know Mark or not, but I call him Indiana Jones. He goes out around the world and just finds all this unique stuff and brings it back. And
Oh, cool.
some of it has a place, and some of it he's got to kind of talk more about it to kind of sell the image, but sell the vision. But pretty cool stuff. But here's what's on my mind, and you tell me your thoughts. Like, there's two words I want to talk about today: limiting factor, and then clear outcomes. And again, limiting factor is, I think it's also called the theory of constraints.
Yeah,
I think
TOC. As soon as you said it, I was like, that's the acronym. Theory of
yeah.
constraint. I learned that in
So
college.
I bumped across a podcast and I'm fascinated by it. These things catch my eye, and you try to put words into thoughts, and this is the word that kind of I've been thinking through this. I just haven't put a term to it, but I think as we're talking with the companies that we're coaching, we're mentoring, we're working with, and everything we're doing, I just see this. You've got this. You just think of a very simple funnel on the very front end. Here's the start of the funnel. Here's the end. The outcome is, what do we want to accomplish? And most people will say, well, I want to hit a certain dollar amount. I want to hit a certain profit amount. I want to grow a certain amount of business this year. But that funnel is actually it's more like a plumbing diagram across the whole building. It's multiple funnels, multiple avenues to get to that end outcome. But that theory of constraint or limiting factor is, where do you spend your time when you start to look at all of these pipes going from here to that one outcome? And I think what I wanted to talk about was really what you should be doing, because I think people just see a fire and they go to put that fire out, or they see a constraint within that pipe and they go to address that. But I think the real priority is the way I'm looking at it now. I've been thinking about it is, you should start at the very front of that funnel. Again, let's just take a simple 3 funnel system going this way, this way, this way, straight through, this way down. If your constraint is here on that third avenue or that third pipe toward the end, but you also have 2 at the very front, you shouldn't really start at the very end, because you should start at the very front of that to kind of speed that whole process. So that bottleneck that's occurring at the start of the process is something that should be addressed first, versus maybe saying, well, this is the step right before closing the sale. I should address that. When in theory, this is where I'm going with this. You may see something that starts on the very front side of it, and you address that, and all of a sudden that issue that you were going to address, maybe it resolves itself automatically, or maybe it divides into 2, and you say, well, there's 2 issues here. So I'm rambling a little bit, but tell me some thoughts. I'm thinking what you've done in your business before with really taking those choke points out of the system.
So, quick definition of theory of constraint is really it's a management philosophy. I think that's the right word. It focuses on identifying the weakest link, right, which is constraint in any kind of system or program um, that affects overall output of that program. It could be a person, it could be a process, it could be any of those things, and that, and so a lot of times, and you and I talk about this all the time, is it's not it's people, process, and profits, right, at times. But if you don't have the right process in place or the right person in place, it often impacts the profit, the bottom line. And so theory of constraint is kind of a philosophy of looking at every avenue of your business and your operation or sales, like we mentioned, or just your overall management. Where are the bottlenecks, the weakest links in the process and the step, right? So I might have a process for a sales process. I might have a floor care process. I might have a office memorandum process, whatever it is. And what we do is we study the process to find what that weakest link is, and we figure out how to fix that weakest link and make it strong. Whether in the process there's a step that would be, I called it a hole. What's the hole in the process that is causing us to leak water? Um, to use your plumbing analogy. The other side of that is it a person? Do I have the people in the wrong seat on the bus, right? So in my business, I would look at the bottleneck, right? Identifying the bottleneck, um, and probably even trying to decide um, what is this a person, or is this a system that has a low capacity that doesn't fit in the system? If it's a person,
Yeah.
it might be something along those lines, or if there's a hole in the system. But um, those things can bring a lot of constraint to your business and hold you back. And like you said, you might fix, we might, in your example of 3 lines of a plumbing system, we might fix this constraint or this issue, and it might create another one somewhere else because this is fixed, and then all of a sudden we exposed another weak link or a leak in the system. So
Well,
does that make
I think that makes perfect sense. But I think the other thing, and I think this is where I was tying the two together, was the limiting factor, the law of constraints, but also that outcome.
yeah,
If you don't have that outcome very clearly defined, maybe that outcome is, if it's not clearly defined, maybe you're creating. Sorry, getting a call.
that's right.
But maybe you're creating a process where one doesn't need to exist because first of all, your outcome's not defined. So how do you create a process when you have not clearly articulated or shared your vision for the outcome? And then sometimes if the outcomes becomes clear, all of a sudden you realize that those 3 channels of plumbing, maybe I don't need 3 channels of plumbing. Maybe it's only 2. Maybe it's only 1. So I think that's the rabbit hole I was going down last week, just thinking through some things we're working on here at Route. And I think that I see too many people, jump into something and say, we're going to fix this first. Well, I would say, let's start at the very first of the process, and let's see if that flow, let's get the outcome first of all, and then see if that flow is gaining velocity as it goes down those different channels versus slow down, speed up, slow down, speed up, and then at the very end, oh, you made it 100% more effective, but you still have all this stuff in the back that is going to impact the back of the funnel when it gets to
Yeah.
that process. So
Well, in our company, Jack, I used to call them roadblocks. What are the roadblocks to you getting done what you need to get done in your system? And a lot of times we found it was another individual on the management team or in the process, but they were very unaware that they were the roadblock, right? like
yeah,
I might sit in a meeting, I'll use myself as an example. I might sit in a meeting and I might say, hey, we're 2 weeks into this. How come we aren't here yet? Why has this not happened? And like you said, I'm even getting better doing this in coaching, is ask why 5 times, right? You taught me
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
Why? Um, and people would say, well, I sent you an email, you didn't respond yet. So I'm the roadblock, not knowing it. But that's
Yeah.
what's so important about the weekly meetings with your leadership team is identifying these, identifying these constraints that are holding your company back, and then managing those weakest links, getting them fixed. And you're going to expose 9 times out of 10, you're going to expose by fixing one weak link, you're going to expose another one. I'm currently working with an organization now where um, I've exposed a weak link, and we're addressing it, fixing it. And I know full well, just from experience, when I address this weak link, I'm going to expose another person as the weak link.
Yeah.
I know it's going to
Yeah.
happen. And I've already prepped them to say, look, you got to get going because, I'm working with this organization as a fractional, COO, and I know it's going to expose them. And I said, you got to start doing things the right way here. So that's just an easy example of how that, the theory of constraints works. And as soon as you started talking about, man, I just flooded all this, my education stuff started flooding in my head. And I'm like, man, I can remember doing the project where oftentimes there's always going to be, that's what management does, is fix those constraints to where you
Yeah.
get to be that well-oiled machine. And I would challenge owners and managers and in any organization, but especially in BSCs. I think sometimes we sacrifice success for personalities and relationships. And don't be afraid, right? Don't be afraid to pull the manager in or the secretary in or the floor care or the supervisor, say, hey, look, I don't think I've done a good job of keeping you in the right place. I need to move you here. I think this is more your sweet spot. Or sometimes I just need to move you out of the company altogether. And be kind, be generous. In our company, it was always a 2-month runway with management or supervisor. I always gave them, hey, we're gonna have to part ways here, but I gave them 2 months of severance so they could go find a job because we want to be kind to people, right? Especially when it was a discovery made on our team's effort to expose where our weakest links were. And sometimes it was just the process. It wasn't even the person. The person was managing the process, but they were so entrenched in the process, they didn't see it as an issue. And when it gets exposed as a team, they're like, well, just tell me what should I be doing and do this. And next thing you know, man, we're just booming in that particular area. So, and this isn't just a one-time theory of constraint is not a one-time thing. It's something that it's kind of an ongoing thing. Jack, you taught me this, and I'm sure I've heard it before, but I'm gonna give you full credit for it. But it's, you ask one question, why? You're
Yeah.
gonna, okay, well, why? I understand that. Well, why? I see what you're saying. Why is that? Well, next thing you know, and then one more why, right? The next thing you know, if you ask it enough, you're going to get to the real answer. Well,
Yeah.
because of Betty or because of Billy, or, well, this is the standard you set for the company. And now you're exposing me as the owner to say, and I got to be willing to accept enough to know that I want the company to grow. And in my capacity is everybody has one. And so my capacity is here, so I got to be willing to go, okay, I got to hire this person or this position because I don't have the capacity to do it. So I
Yeah.
love how the why questions, coincide with the theory of constraints. So
Yeah, and I think the other thing too that I'll add to that is not always, look at me being all like, let's not get rid of somebody. But I like the fact that maybe, it's called a blind spot for a reason. People go, oh, my blind spots, I know where they are. Well, if you know where they are, why aren't you doing something about it? So most blind spots are truly blind spots. What's the old saying as well? I love the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over. Well, guess what? That crazy, insane person doesn't know they're doing it again and again and again. Same thing with blind spots. If you really have a blind spot, you don't see it by nature. And I think that's one of the things too. And I love those aha moments and again, they happen, but when you have those aha moments go, holy crap, I wasn't aware that I was doing that. Holy crap, I was not aware that. And I think those conversations, when you have them with the people who are open-minded, they go, wow, I wasn't aware of that. Now you say something, I see it as clear as day. Let me work on it. And all of a sudden, there's that constraint. That constraint is eliminated because if they really start to act on it, that blind spot is no longer a blind spot. Now, guess what? There'll be another blind spot or two or constraint down the road that will pop up, but that's the continuous improvement. So again, I'm stuck on that, but I'm stuck on this too. The outcomes, like I think the next time, like we're right now working on some new clients and getting some new clients on board. But what are those outcomes? And I think we tie those outcomes. What is that outcome? Okay, I want to be a $10 million company in the next 5 years. Okay, why? Well, it just sounds like a great number. Well, why does it sound like a great number? Well, I'll be able to work less because I'm that much more profitable, that larger. Well, why do you want to work less and why do you want to be more profitable? Well, more profit means I can step back from the business. Well, why do you want to step back from the business? I don't want to work that hard. Well, the wise, yeah. Well, you're heading to an outcome that is not, again, it can be done, but it's typically not the same. Maybe it's a blind spot, but it's not. You have a blind spot that you think getting to 10 million without having to put too much effort and work into it is not the end result. So,
I think two things. Number one, the better question to ask and yourself and ask your team. And listen, if you're an owner of a business, of a commercial janitory business, or really any business for that matter that might be listening, if you're the owner of a business, this is a hard question to ask your team. You got to be willing to take it on the chin. But if you ask a question, what's holding us back from achieving these goals or this goal, right? What's holding us back? Right on the whiteboard. I can guarantee you're going to get some good feedback, but when you begin to get honest feedback, 99% of the time, your name's involved in it.
Yep.
Right. Yep. So I would challenge you as a business coach, and I'll say this on the side, if you want to hire me and Jack to help you work through all this as business coaches, we do this stuff all day long. We just what we do. Right. And I'm the mean guy. Jack's the nice guy. If you're somebody on the team that you've got to move out, I'm not afraid to tell you they need to go. They're the thing holding you back. And you can pay us to do that. And here's what I guarantee you. It will impact that money will come back to you 3 or 4-fold because there's so many business owners out there right now that are held back or holding themselves back or their company back because of one or two people, someone on their team that they're just afraid to dismiss. It might be mom, dad, grandpa, sister, or just a friend for 40 years, right? Or it might be you. You might be the reason. And your job might need to be, okay, Mr. Smith, you run this company. I'm going to go play golf with our customers and keep them happy because that's what I'm really good at. And you run the day-to-day operations. So you got to be wise enough to see that when you're standing in the way or the answer to your problem and you're just not willing to face it. And so those are, and that's hard. It sounds hard, but I will just tell you, this is from the voice of experience. This is from someone on the other side. I tell my kids all the time, they're in their mid-20s now, all of them. And they can't stand this phrase, but I say, you'll be all right. You'll be all right. And they're like, don't say it. I'm like, you will. You're going to be all right. You'll be fine, And so we get, Jack and I can say those things because we're on this side of that experience. And people, bless my dad's heart. He's been gone 7 years now, but people used to, you fired your dad? I'm like, yes, because sales wise, he was a hunter gatherer and he was going out and killing and dragging stuff back we didn't want. Like, Dad, we can't do this anymore. I can't do 1 day a week on Sunday afternoon at 2:00. I can't do that. So, and I was like, I think we just need to part ways, go home, you and Mom go out and I'll pay for your golfing or something. So
go fun. Let me ask you this: that whiteboard concept, because we've done that before. I think everybody's done that, but that whiteboard is saying what is holding us back. Why, what is holding us back, and why is it holding us back? But when you did that, because there's two sides of the coin, right? There's the coin that what we see internally, that we think and we feel internally, our perspective internally, but also on the reverse side. I was just talking about this last week with somebody. There's that perspective, not that. I guess that perspective is different than, what am I trying to say? Perspective of the client as well. So the client has perspective as well. So you may have your perspective of what's holding you back, but how well does that align with what the client has? So that you may think, and this is holding us back. The clients, if you have an open conversation with them, they're saying we would do more business with you if you did this, and you're not in that really that alignment. So by nature, what you think you're fixing is not what the client wants you to fix, and that's going to vary by client, of course. But there's going to be some similarities that you start to kind of ask the clients what their perspective is.
Yeah.
What's your take on that? Did you do that as well?
Yeah, I think here's the thing. It's the old adage, what did you hear versus what did I say, right?
Mm,
Right. I mean, that's really what it is,
yeah,
because I
yeah,
might be saying, "Hey, I'll take care of that. I'll do this. I'll do it." And it doesn't get down to the appropriate level, to that action step, and the client sees it as failure, and my building ain't clean, and you're like, "I said we were going to do it. I made sure we were going to make it happen. I don't understand why you're upset." Well, it didn't happen. And so sometimes we don't interpret the communication process well. And so one of the things, if we would lose a large contract or a large customer or a big customer, I would literally get everybody in the room, sit down with a whiteboard, and the employees at that building. I could think of one building, I had, I don't know, 6 or 7 employees in it. I pulled everybody together and asked the question, what happened? Right? What happened? And I just did this as an exercise here. What happened? And
yeah,
when everybody involved is in the room, you are pushing your team that much closer to understanding we're all part of this. This is what makes this business go around. This is how we all get paid. This is how we all function. And and supervisor, well, I communicated this to the team lead. The team lead's like, well, I told them, they just didn't do it. And the employee said, I did it. This is what I did. Well, okay, well, what did you do exactly? The customer's expectation was this, not this. We don't leave it up to you to decide. The customer explained to us how they wanted it done. So we have to make sure, all right, so there's a constraint, there's a problem, communication problem we discovered from the supervisor level, from the customer to the supervisor to the employee, that message got twisted and it didn't get done the way the customer wanted it. And so now to solve that problem, we would ask the customer if it was a specialty or something. We lost a good sized contract over one thing. All the cleaning was great. We messed up in this one area that affected them greatly. And so
yeah.
we pulled the customer in and said, okay, next time when we have a situation like this, we're going to have the customer be there to make sure they're overseeing and looking at how it gets done specifically, or approving it before we leave. Never had a problem like that again. So that's
I'm
just
gonna throw, I'm gonna throw,
example.
no, I get it. I'm gonna throw another one. This ties to what you just said. This is what I was trying to think of, the 2 P's, because I use the 4 P's: people, process, products, and perception. Excuse me, perspective. Excuse me, perspective. That's where I changed it. So people, process, products, perspective. Again, you got great people, great products, bad
Yeah.
processes, bad perspective, nothing falls apart. That combination, all that. But I'm going to say this twice just so it resonates: perspective versus perception. Again, I'll say it again: perspective versus perception. Because I think too many people, when they think about their clients, they're going, what is their perception? And again, that's important. What do they think? But I think the good people that I've seen in this business, other businesses as well, they put themselves in the perspective of the client, not the perception. What do I think they're thinking versus let me put myself in that property manager's shoes. Let me put myself in that facility manager's shoes. And what is their perspective of what we're doing? And I think that kind of ties with what you're doing, because if I'm just looking at what I think their perspective is, or their perception is, if I think what I think the perception is, it's still a guess. It's still I think they think this. And I think you really have to put yourself in their shoes. And maybe that's how I would say it to a client is, let me put myself in your perspective. This is what I see. Am I wrong? It is not, I don't even talk, expectations anymore. Is that the wrong standard that I'm setting in your perspective? And again, this is like a play on words, but getting yourself and pulling yourself out of your body and putting it into the client's shoes and really saying, hey, what is that perspective? I think is huge. And it's harder to say than easier to do, but I think it's easier to do. But if you look at yourself as that property manager, and that's your task, is to, reduce the budget, improve the cleanliness, improve tenant satisfaction, all those things. All of a sudden, your mind starts to kind of go in different directions on how do I accomplish that from the perspective of that property manager, that facility manager, of that owner.
Yeah. Put in Jerry dumbed down version. Well, I guess no news is good news, right? We're cleaning, right? Everything's happening. Nobody's saying anything. I guess everything's good. An ignorant way to run your business. You got to know. You got to understand just what Jack was saying. What is their perception?
Perspective. Yeah.
What is their perspective of your organization, and how do you find that out? You ask, right? What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? What can I do? This was always my question. Let's take property management people. No shame on property management people. They're it's not the easiest game in town because typically it comes with volume, but very little profit margin. So you need the volume. But the expectation is that if they can get it a dime or two cheaper or a penny or two cheaper, they'll make the jump. And I was able to curtail that by just staying in their back pocket and saying, how are we doing? What can we do to make your day easier? Stop these phone calls from happening, right?
You got to say that differently. You cannot say be in their back pocket. That's bribery, Jerry. You got to be careful with that term.
Yeah. Well, you know what I'm saying, but you have to communicate enough.
I'm giving you a hard time.
No, like I can't get these calls anymore. Well, that's a blanket. That's just a blanket. Well, what specifically are we not doing that's causing people to call you? And here's a lot of times it just comes down to the scope of work is broader than what they really wanted, or what they're really paying for. And so you got a customer complaining about something, not to chase a rabbit, but something large that's not even in the scope of work, and trying to communicate that. So yeah, you're right. You got to understand where your customer is at all times. You cannot, and that for me, my organization, the last 4 or 5 years, I spent all my time communicating and staying in touch with the top 10.
That's the key word. So we've gone from limiting factor, theory of constraint, to outcomes, knowing outcomes, what's holding us back, to perception, perspective. But this I learned from you from the contract side. And again, this is what made you successful, but that communication. You're going to communicate better than your competition.
Yeah.
If you can communicate better than your competition.
Yep. Yeah. I'm going to do every day. I even now, if I had enough energy to jump back into the game, I would beat everybody in this area, in this region, just because I know the competition through coaching, right?
Yep.
And I know where their weaknesses are. I know where I could beat them. That's not going to happen. I'm not interested in doing that, but I know exactly how I could. I shouldn't say beat them. And that's probably not. But I know how I can win over a lot of business that will just help us be successful immediately, because there's so many people that are stuck in it so deep that they can't get out to look at it and go, this is who we truly are. Here's a bold one. One more. I know we're out of time, but here's a bold one. So you're doing that. You're doing the theory of constraint. Bring your top 10 customers in and ask that question. What are we doing wrong?
Good one.
Now all of a sudden, and what are we doing right? You got to give a fair shake. But what are we doing wrong? Listen, let the customer, from a customer service perspective, tell you.
I love it.
Where are you at? Yeah. I don't want to say anymore because this is expensive stuff here that we're throwing out.
Well, I took us down a rabbit hole, but I am going to dive on what you talked about, and we're going to outcomes, limiting factors, theory of constraint, what's holding you back, perception versus perspective. One last request for you. I'll drop you an email on this, and if anybody's still listening, Newport News, I'm going to need a contractor in the next couple of weeks that's willing to take some subcontract opportunities. So I'm going to send you an email to have.
You know a lot of people in this area.
I'm going to send you an email to have them sign up for the exchange, because I got off a call today, and the guys in DC is looking to put some money and work down here. So down your way.
Sure, no problem.
So good stuff. Good conversation.
Thank you guys for joining the show. Like us, follow us, holler at us, make us YouTube sensation out of. What else do we say, Jack? The cool kids tell us how to do it. I don't know how to do it, but
we got you. We got to change it. We got to change the name. It's Chasing Dirt with a grandpa and a future grandpa. How about that?
Yeah, with Chief. Chasing Dirt with Chief.
Yeah, so. All right, man. Be good. Have a good week.
All right, everybody have a great week. We'll see you.